live here, and then Facebook and everything will go live too. So we're on air on this.
I saw a pop-up. It said
we are live on YouTube, Facebook.
There you go. Live right now on Crowdcast, which is sending it out to Facebook and YouTube.
All right, we are officially live on YouTube and Facebook right now, everybody.
There you go. It shows your screen as like a little like frozen icon guy. I don't know if you can delete that or move it away.
Oh, there we go. I think I got rid of it.
No, you're in this wedge in the middle of us. Oh, there you go. Yeah, nice.
I don't want to be the wedge between you.
Yeah, so hey.
Nothing can come between JJ and myself.
It's like we should like a high five. Like oh no, I'm on the other side. Oh, dang, it
doesn't work.
Yeah, so welcome everybody. If you're just tuning in, this is JJ, this is Kevin. We're here working with MadLab, and actually Kevin and I have not talked to each other since he pissed me off. No, I'm just kidding. We haven't talked in a while. So if you guys have questions, that's great. Throw some questions out for us. Otherwise, he and I are just going to catch up on what's been going on in the industry and with some of the people who are in the group. So, Kevin, you've been super busy lately.
Yeah.
Like unbelievable. Like I keep hearing about it. Like, and I see some of the scheduling stuff. I'm like, he is just talking client after client after client, like helping these gym owners, right?
Yeah, I moved to a new town, and I immediately started trying to get involved in the city. And I tried to volunteer with this high school lacrosse team, and I showed up for a week and a half, and then I just Irish goodbye'd them and was like, sorry. I'm completely booked. I cannot go anywhere. I can't help out. But it's been awesome. I mean, my job is to talk with gym owners all around the world who are in the group, obviously. And so we've just been fast tracking a little bit. Talking about the new stuff that's coming on the web hub and what all the resources are that's coming out for the coaches and getting them set up. And so, that's been really exciting to hear their feedback and to see the web hub continue to evolve every week. It seems like I think every Monday I get back on there and it's changed the architecture.
Yeah.
And in fact, I just talked to Red and said, hey, can you put in something to where they can just schedule a 15-minute call just to get the web hub activation for their coaches, instead of doing a full hour, 45-minute call. And so he got that done in 10 minutes, it seemed like. So if everybody goes on to my account in the web hub, there's a little specific button that they can hit to schedule with me to give me all the information so that I can give their coaches access. And we're really very excited. I think you're probably instrumental in this to be able to get the coaches access.
So this is pretty revolutionary. Some other of these business groups have private forums or Facebook groups and things, but it's for the gym owners.
Yeah.
What we've actually done is we're actually bringing the coaches in, because ultimately, if you are not supporting your coaches and your coaches are not the ones driving the business forward, then you're always going to have the same problems. You're going to have coach turnover, which leads to business problems and client turnover. We're bringing the coaches into the group because, as we always say, one of our core missions at MadLab is to professionalize the coach.
Yes.
And so they're going to be interacting with us in this new web hub. It's not all on you guys as owners to try to be learning everything and try to do everything else that you're trying to control. We want to bring your coaches in and let us work with your coaches so that they can become the masters of their own fate, right? And so I'm really excited about this next phase, and so it's pretty cool. I mean, as somebody who worked as a coach for many years and then eventually led and created coaches, I just wish there was something like this before.
Yeah. The rate of innovation going on in the group right now and is happening really quickly on a number of different levels. And, we're seeing it on the marketing side with all the stuff that Chandler's doing, and we're seeing it on the coach development side. And we've talked so much about how once you've gotten your first seal, love you first seal, once you've got your first seal and you've got that sustainable foundation for your business, that model that's actually going to be profitable, then the owner's role is really about staff development and about marketing. And I'd love to continue to hear what your guys' plans are to continue to develop those coaches.
Yeah. So what I always say is the coach is the hub, right? It's the center of the universe. People are really paying for the relationship with the coach, and then that pays the gym and the business and the owners and stuff. And so if you're not focusing on coaches, then there's no way you can keep the amount of energy and time and money that it takes to produce new employees.
Mm-hmm.
If you're seeing these people come 1, 2, or 3 years and then phase out, and you're constantly training new people, not only is the quality of your product just way lower than it could be, the coaches themselves, you're not doing them any favors by bringing them in. Most businesses don't hire somebody assuming they're only going to stick around for a year or 3.
Mm-hmm.
Like that doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're investing all this time and energy into a person. You really want them to be successful and then eventually become, some sort of leader or manager or even becoming a partner someday. That is a theme this week, I think, with MadLab is with some of our content has been creating a sellable asset.
Mm-hmm.
And who better to buy into your business and become a partner and share in some of the profits than somebody who's been investing their lives for the last 3 or 5 years. But the only way that works is if you're paying them enough where they have enough money to be able to buy in, But yeah, so what we're really trying to do from a coach development department is obviously we're making sure that the content is there, and we're really putting in place a lot of the quality control that we need. Ultimately, one of the biggest problems with chronic issues with our industry is quality. There's no real checks and balances saying like, okay, this person is. I don't know how many times I've met somebody who has had a dozen professional certifications, a degree in exercise physiology and everything like that, and they can't coach out of a wet paper bag. Like it's amazing, that this is still a problem, but it has to do with the fact there hasn't really been a cohesive process for them to follow. And so that's one of the things that we're cementing right now is, again, our oral exams to make sure that if you call yourself an associate coach at MadLab, like that means something.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you find that what the development stages are from taking someone who's working in, a boutique functional fitness gym that's operated around group exercise and makes a transition to MadLab? Do you find, or have you guys talked a little bit about how that transition looks like for the coach? Because from my side on owner development, the stuff that we have to roll out, you could roll out really quickly, but it takes time. It takes those 2 or 3 months just because we have to actually get real buy-in first from the owners and then from the coaches that, the methods, they have to see the methods work on some clients, through fundamentals, one-on-one, and hybrids. And that's a complete mind shift.
That's what I was going to say.
The experience that they were doing previously, that most of these coaches, all of their experience is Group X.
Yeah. Well, most of the coaches, got into this because they wanted to help people. And then there's some coaches that got into it because they believed in, I got mine on right now. Look at that. Most of the coaches got into this because they liked helping people. Some coaches might be doing it because they like to compete, and this is a way for them to help be involved in the gym and compete. There's nothing wrong with that, but the fundamental shift is they've been building a skill set around leading a group. Making it fun and entertaining while still teaching people and trying to maintain these relationships. But ultimately, the fundamental shift when it comes to a coach for life is the personal one-on-one side. And a lot of coaches didn't come into it with a one-on-one relationship or one-on-one, so they don't see it. They say like, that's too expensive. I would never pay it. So then they have apprehensions about selling it. And what they don't understand is the vast majority of people who end up in coaching roles are fit people. Like they're driven. They have a discipline.
Yeah, this is the number one mistake that owners make and coaches is they think that they are the market. And so if they wouldn't buy it, then no one else would buy it either. I would just have to say that there's probably not a lot of car salesmen who are at the Ferrari dealership who also buy Ferraris, right?
Yeah,
I mean, you're not the market. You have to be a multi-millionaire.
If you're a car mechanic and you're like, and that's you own a shop or you work on cars every day and your car needs an oil change, you may or may not go take it in for an oil change. Sometimes it's so cheap now you might actually do it, but like, I'm gonna I gotta put the brakes on my car. Like, unless unless somebody's going to give you a sweet deal and your
Why
time is
would
more
anyone pay to get their brakes done?
Yeah,
I mean, all you do is just go switch them, right?
you buy
You
it.
do it. You put it up on the little blocks that you have at your home lift, in your home garage,
you put them on your
and you change it. It's 45 minutes. Why would somebody ever pay? These people are idiots.
Oh yeah,
It's just suckers.
I love using the car analogy. I don't know if you've heard me talk about it before too. With the somebody comes in and says like, well, how much is it to get my car fixed? And then the mechanic is like, what do you mean? Well, my car, it's been getting worse gas mileage. It's making some really bad noises. It has a hard time starting. And how much is it fixed? You're like, mechanic's going to say, well, we'll bring it in. We'll take a look. I can't really diagnose what's going on without actually taking a look. Well, what's your cheapest service? An oil change. Well, let's start with that. Let's start with an oil change and see if that fixes it. Like, no, I need to evaluate where you're at before I give you any kind of estimate. But when it comes to fitness and health, that's what people expect. It's like they want to show up and they're gonna pick the option that fits their budget, not pick the option that's going to solve their problems. And then realistically, when we talk about budgets, even though most MATLAB gyms are a little bit more expensive than the average kind of group exercise gym, it still boils down to how going out to dinner for 2 people once a week. Like, can you afford, if you are already going out to dinner once or twice a week, or going out to the bar once or twice a week, $50 a week, you can afford a membership at most of these gyms. But
there's so much in what you just said there that we could unpack. Greg Mack talks about this big time in the early modules of his communication course that we have at MadLab, when he talks about the different psychological states that we have to bring through when we're going through a first day experience. And I make a similar analogy when I talk about, I'm dealing with a couple of different people when I'm talking to one prospect. I've got the athlete, and the athlete has specific needs, right? On how are we going to develop the athlete? How are we going to train them? How much recovery do they need? How much stimulus can I give them every day without completely wrecking them and overtraining them or injuring them, but getting them that minimum viable dose? Yeah, we're not just wasting their time. But a lot of people, when they come in and they're in the framework of shopping, they don't even know what the athlete's needs are in their own body. They only know what the consumer's needs are. So they're looking on the consumer list of how much, what's the location, when is the schedule. These things are important, but they're not sufficient, right? They're necessary, but not sufficient. Is we need to be able to check those boxes off. But just because those boxes are checked doesn't mean that we've taken care of the athlete. And we need to be able to navigate those kind of psychic tensions to be able to talk about both. And it takes some skill to be able to bounce back and forth between the two of them. With somebody that you just met who might be on guard, not really sure what to expect.
And that's part of the reputation thing too. Is as you grow your brand and your reputation, people will understand that, like, we don't want to work with people that don't need us. Like, we only want the clients that actually need our help, right? And that we can change, because there's nothing worse than investing a lot of time and energy into somebody and then having them leave. Like, I don't want to work with those people. Like, if you don't need my help, then I totally understand. Let me find someone who does need my help.
What I always say is, you probably don't need the level of service I provide. That's okay.
Yeah.
Right? I have a high level of service for people who need that level of service. Not everybody needs valet parking. Not everybody needs a personal chef.
Yeah.
Some people do, right? Their lifestyle is set up in such a way that they need somebody to come and make their meals.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And there's a little bit of that in what we do.
Yeah. You make people's meals? No. So
my own. It's one meal. I just make it over and over again.
Yeah, pretty much though. But yeah, going back to the coach thing is so then a lot of these people who have been successful in a group environment, when you start talking to them about, like, we got to do one-on-ones and you're going to do sales, the coaches start getting very resistant to it. And obviously anybody who's worked in a personal training environment can start to see the power of doing one-on-ones in the beginning and then shifting to a hybrid model. They get it. And so that's really, so those of you guys who are owners who are starting to kind of grow your business and looking for employees, one of the best places some of the best coaches you'll find are successful personal trainers. Ones that are smart enough to realize that after doing it for 2 or 3 or 5 years, that they can't do this the rest of their life, and they need to find a better solution.
I just told your neighbor a little further north of you about that. She asked, a girl in the group asked, and I told her, personal trainers make the switch much more easily to the MadLab system than workout administrators in Group X. Robin at CF Oakland.
Oh, yeah, Robin. I love Robin. I hung out with Mike a couple months ago. There's a ton, a ton of great gyms in our area. CrossFit Oakland, like right now, currently, one of the 22nd gym on the affiliate owner list. They were in the original 50, and now they're down to almost the top 20. I helped build their gym. I actually built a pull-up bar for them in their original location before I opened my gym at Diablo. But that personal trainers, graduates, people who are graduating with kinesiology degrees and things like that. But the thing is that class coaches, there needs to be a little bit extra education about it. And even then, I know in my own experience, like you mentioned, there's a certain incubation period where they have to see the clients that come out of a fundamentals program and then they go to classes, how much better of a client they are, right? And then they start getting it. They're like, oh my gosh, this is so much better than dealing with some random person who did a 4-session group assessment, or even an 8 or a 12 session on ramp. How much better this person is, better prepared, and just a better client when they come into the classes. The classes run smoother and everything runs better when you have that. So then they start to get it. The second stage I see a lot with a lot of new coaches is they're very apprehensive about the price until they start to realize their schedule starts to fill up and they understand the power of what they're teaching. And then when people try to walk all over them and want discounts, the coach is like, no, like I'm booked. Like this is what it's got to be, and if it's too much, I'm sorry. I really appreciate it. I can try to work with you, but this is, I got these other people I got to help. And that flips a switch in their head, and the clients can perceive it. If you don't believe in what you're selling, you can't sell. Like it's.
Yeah. That's why when I talk with new owners and I tell them that the power's in the structure, in CrossFit, we say the magic is in the movements. And in MadLab, we talk them the magic is in the structure of one-on-one personal training, 10, 15, 20 sessions, and then the hybrid memberships. And I tell people, don't get caught up on the price. If you can't wrap your mind around the price right now, drop it. Drop the price to whatever it is you need to do to get 3 clients through a full fundamentals program so you can see it. And what happens is they see the results in the clients, and then they realize how hard they're working. And then they get that result that you were talking about of, I cannot work this hard for $10.
Yeah,
$10 a session.
But that was what happened. I was talking to somebody recently about that, and it was interesting that like I just get so frustrated talking to gyms not in the MATLAB group. And I'm like, do you not understand that this is a better way? It might be the only way to teach people what we're doing. And they just think they can go on. Oh, I just got to sign up another 20 members. I just got to grow, and I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing, and I'm gonna work hard. And this obsession with working harder, and putting in more hours and more time is gonna pay off. And it's like, if you don't have the systems in place, like it doesn't matter how hard you work, it doesn't work. It's broken. The system is broken.
Well, it's a different product. It's a different service.
We've created
that Group X is offering versus the hybrid personal training model.
Mm-hmm. It's different than personal training too. It's a different.
Right. But I'm interested in a couple. I have so many questions for you. I hope we can get to them. What do you think? Do you think that if somebody peers into the windows of your gym and watches a class, do you think that it looks different than a class at a non-MadLab group exercise model?
To the lay person, probably. It probably looks the same. That's one of the reasons why I don't want random people coming in and watching classes, because they can't tell the difference. They can't tell the difference. It's an interpretation thing. I come from a martial arts background, And it's the same thing. It'd be the same thing as if somebody went to watch a practice of a sports team. If you're not a fan of the sport and you don't understand, you're not going to be able to tell the difference between a good practice and a bad practice. But to the layperson, it's going to look very similar on the surface. But the fact that, for example, this person might be doing a class of 10 people, and they know like 7 of them are clients of that coach. That coach is going to be like, okay, I'm going to take everyone else over here to start teaching the squat. You're advanced. Why don't you go get your Oli shoes on and your knee sleeves and your belt and your wrist straps or whatever you need and start warming up because I know you're advanced. And then you're going to do some extra mobility over here because of that knee that's been bugging you.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't notice that as a layperson.
Right.
But that's what happens when you have a coach who knows every single person in the class. The problem is with the traditional Group X model is while great coaches might be able to juggle all of that, they're not being paid for that. They're being paid to go on stage. They're being paid usually salary or usually hourly, but sometimes salary to go up and put on a show, be informative, entertaining, and safe, and all those things. But they don't necessarily need to know every single athlete or member that's there. And so they're not necessarily going to spend the mental energy to really get to know those people and give them the customized information they need. And that's what we do with the MadLab model is a coach for life. They're going to know every one of those clients and make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. And those other clients that aren't the coach for lives that I don't necessarily know, but I'm going to say, who's your coach? If this person's doing something weird or, maybe they're doing something wrong with their shoulder, I'm going to message that coach and say, hey, Steve was in the class. Do you know his shoulders? Oh, yeah, his shoulder's been bugging him. Why don't you follow up with him so to make sure he's good? And so then there's that coverage there that it's a whole nother level that people are not getting when they're just showing up to be exertained, right? The exertained.
Yeah. And then you can do the next level, which is having the information collection device, be it just a piece of paper, where the coaches can make the notes on individual clients in class that then goes into the client's file. So when a coach pulls the file, they can see for their assessment or for their next hybrid, hey, I see that you had some trouble with this movement. Let's go ahead and work on this now. And when you show up to a hybrid PT session and you say, hey, I've got here notes that you struggled with toes to bar snatches and, whatever else, push press. Let's work on this. It becomes like, wow, I showed up and I don't even have to say, here's what it is. They actually have a system to collect information that gets distributed through all the files. So the coach can just go, here we go. Even if they weren't coaching that specific client in the class.
It goes back to what I always say is that class leaders are like bosses and coaches are leaders. Right. And these are your people that are in your charge and you're leading them. And if you find out someone had a frustrating day from another colleague, so it's just, you know what, Susan's day was like, she seemed really upset or she was really frustrated with her toaster bar. And then you message her the next day, like that is the people that blows people away. And ultimately, like I said, if you're the kind of person who really enjoys helping people, like the fact that you reached out is gonna it makes you feel good. It makes them feel like they feel loved and they understand that you care, and that's what keeps people around for decades. Not just having their friends at the gym. I think a lot of the Group X kind of business model is based upon friends at the gym.
It's a network effect.
And which is fine. That's something we're magnifying and we're trying to take advantage of as well. But when you have somebody else who's leading them and holding them accountable, but also being the shoulder to cry on at the same time, there's just no comparison when it comes to that. But that's an interesting question. Like when a person comes now, the average CrossFitter might notice the difference, and it depends on the gym they come from. What we see is that gyms that are at that 80, 100, 120 person mark, you've got a really powerful leader who's the owner on the floor all the time, maybe partners, two partners leading it. They do that. They inherently get it because it's the business. And so, one person having a bad experience, they're going to follow up with that person because they care about it because of the business, right? A coach isn't going to follow. One person has a bad day, they might bring it up to the owners. But realistically, again, the coach is only being paid, especially after they've been coaching for 2 or 3 years. They're only being paid for that hour. So they're not going to take the time to say, hey, seem like so-and-so had a bad day, you should follow up with them. Owners who are doing the bulk of the coaching will do that. And that's where we see the model really start to fail, is that they really struggle getting past that 150, 200 member mark if they're not on the floor all the time. If you have 2 partners on the floor, 150, 200 members is kind of the number. It goes back to that.
I don't see a lot of 200. I see them at 150, even with 2. And the reason is because they're actually, with partner owners, they basically are running the MadLab system organically by themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Because they met everybody. They're on performance pay. They're as invested as it gets.
Yeah.
And, a lot of times their classes are small, and so they're able to get a lot of the relationship built. But then they hit that wall where, once you get 6, 7 people in there, and if some people have been there for a year and a half, and then here comes a newbie, it's really hard to bring the new person and you've got these guys spinning and get them up to speed, despite what some of the attempts historically have been. And it's just a different model. And so my theory has been that classes look the same from the outside, but the experience in between the ears of a client in a group exercise model versus in a MadLab class where they have a professional relationship with the coach. They've spent 20 hours one-on-one with the coach. That when the coach says the same cue that he might have said in a group class, it's interpreted completely differently, especially for, what I might term kind of high-risk clientele. These are older clientele. These are clientele who are introverts. These are clientele that would not identify as athletic, that don't have a team sports background. And so they're really going out on the line.
You mean
and they have a real emotional
the most?
Yes, that's right. And exactly.
Yeah. It's just that that's what I'm so passionate about. Is I started the gym because I wanted to help regular people make huge changes in their lives. I didn't want to make fit people fitter, and ultimately the group exercise model works really well for either motivated, even if they're out and deconditioned, if they're highly motivated and disciplined, great. Or very fit people who have moderate amounts of motivation and discipline. But the people who really need this the most, that we're going to literally save their lives, you're failing them. Most gyms have that attrition rate of about, 20% stick around past the 9 or 10 month mark. That means that for every one person that's at your gym, you've let 4 people go. And that's a shame. That's, we talked about, we were talking about this today in our leadership meeting, is that the industry is broken. We're failing clients, we're failing coaches, and the gym owners are failing. The Group X industry does not work. We're building something completely new.
Now I want to take apart that statistic that you mentioned, because, Gigi mentioned that to me, and Patty's mentioned it to me. Obviously, you guys are all on the same page, having been in the same meetings, right? And talking about the churn rate industry-wide, the average lifetime that a client will be at a group exercise facility. And I think it's really easy because of psychological cognitive biases for people to hear something like only 20% of people make it past, 9 months. The average lifetime client lasts just 6 months at a group exercise, and say, well, gosh, that's not me. That must be these other broken people, because I'm doing a great job. Because look, I got Cheryl and Aaron and Mark and Matt, and these guys have all been with me 5 years, and I've got all these people. And so it's easy to fall into confirmation bias, because when somebody comes for one day or a week and then leaves, you forget about them, right? And you see just the champions, right? The survivorship bias. The people who have made it through, and we forget the hundreds of people we churned through.
That was a huge, huge turning point for me. And I was kind of bringing this up around 2012, 2013. Something it was in the back of my mind. I'm everyone's like, it's great. We've always got 1 or 2 new people in class. We're doing amazing. We're doing great. And I was like, yeah, we're doing great. And then it finally dawned on me that it was never the same 2 or 3 people. It was a rotating spot where, if you especially in our busy evening classes, we'd have, we capped at 16, so call it 14 to 16 people, and there was always 2 or 3 new people. And I'd come in and I'd do my thing with the group, and I'd introduce myself to the new people. And remember at this time, we had 28 classes a day. well over 1,000 members. So like I couldn't keep track of all the new people, but I would always go in and be really gracious, like a manager at a really good restaurant. But I wanted to meet these people, and it started to dawn on me. I'm like, wait a minute. Like they might come for a class or a week or two, and then somebody else would step up and take their place. But it took us years to realize that, because we weren't looking at numbers like lifetime client value and long-term retention and all that. But it was 100% survivorship bias.
Yeah.
Did you ever see that TED Talk where they talk about the planes in World War II?
Yes.
Yeah. So real briefly for everybody who is not familiar with it, these bombers were coming back from bombing runs, and so they were trying to figure out where they could put the armor on. They couldn't armor the whole plane because it would be too heavy. So every time the crews would come back, they'd mark where the most damage was on these little tiny cards. And finally they got hundreds, if not thousands, of these cards. And so then they kind of figured out zones, and they're like, okay, well, we can see that these are the zones that are getting hammered the most by bullets. So let's put armor on them. And they were all gung ho. That's great. Let's do it. It's on certain parts of the wings and the tail. And some engineer finally stood up and said, these are the planes that made it back. They can survive getting hit here. The ones that aren't making it back got hit elsewhere. That's where we need to armor. It was the exact opposite, and that's survivorship bias. And that's the thing about the gyms is if you take a hardcore look at your current members that have survived your current business model or your approach, you're really. And there's a little bit of this in CrossFit in general, right? The CrossFit training is a very vigorous and effective program, but there's a little bit of survivorship bias. The people who are extremely disciplined and don't necessarily have a lot of issues are the most successful. So we think
young, flexible.
Yeah. So we think that some of CrossFit's success and changing people's lives is the fact that the people who survived are the ones that become the success stories. But ultimately, it still works for everybody else. It's just there's a lot more detail and a lot more attention that is needed. And we should be looking at the other people that have left, that didn't succeed, and how do we service those people?
So one of the I really love. First off, I read about that story about survivorship bias of the planes in Walter Isaacson's book, The Innovators, which is all about the development of computer science over the centuries. Is where I first saw that. It's an awesome book, and everybody should read it. I love to give people a way to fix these issues in their gym so that they can make it real. And so one of the things that I did at my gym was, I'm a real big fan of old school manila folders, right? And so I would just take my label maker, and every new person that would sign up for fundamentals just put their name on it, right? And this is their file. Versus in a computer, there's a lot of different ways to do it. And I've been doing this for years before I got into MadLab. And, we got up to 270 some odd clients in my single location. And so then when they would leave, right, I would just take their file and move it to a different section of my filing cabinet. Mm-hmm. And then as we were moving and I'm going through and clearing out all these things, I'm coming across dozens of files, and I don't recognize the names at all. Right? I have no idea who these people are. And it's like, I had a GM who was doing the signups. I had a bunch of coaches who were doing all the coaches. They were going through, 2 personal training sessions, and you're in. And it's just, as my gym got bigger, right, the hole in the bottom got a lot bigger because we had to, quote, scale up our operations. And it was just who can survive this process. And so we lost a lot of people that I probably, our staff had the capability to help them, but the systems weren't in place to allow the staff at the current level of their expertise to deliver. And that's one of the things that I always think about. You mentioned the coach who goes and gets a whole bunch of different certifications and is constantly, learning, the very cutting edge of information. But if the structure of how they are delivering this knowledge doesn't allow them to show this expertise and actually let it work like a laser on the problem that an individual client may have, then it's wasted. It's wasted expertise, wasted time. If you don't use it, you're going to lose this knowledge. And that's where it's so important to go ahead and go learn new things. It's awesome. But you have to incorporate it into personal training or specialty programs and start using it on clients. And that's just not going to happen, in a group exercise where really it's just like group education. You're really dealing with logistics and class management more than how am I going to teach somebody who's got faulty mechanics or just hasn't clicked in their mind yet, or they do have a mobility restriction? How am I going to help that person? Because we know that they understand that our greater need and value is to the group. We got to keep the group going. So I fling a cue at you. I verbally demonstrate. I visually demonstrate, tactile cue. And now it's really your responsibility to get it, because we know you're paying so little for this group environment that I can't spend any more time with you.
Well,
I got 14 other people.
People start to feel guilty when they have an issue. Like, I don't want to come to, I have my shoulder hurts. I don't want my coach to have to give me special treatment and special prescriptions because I don't want to hold everybody up. And it's a herd mentality, right? Like, you're the slowest in the herd. You're feeding the lions today, keep up. And that's what happens. It's like, no, that's why if you have a coach that can tell you before you come, or it is your coach and you show up before class and they can work with you, if they feel comfortable, they can bring those things up because that's the service that they're paying for. Versus, like I said, in the group environment, you're having a bad day, you're hurt, or all those excuses that we hear. I'm busy with work, finances are an issue. Well, those are all reasons for people to not want to come, and then they back off, versus having somebody who cares. That's ultimately all that matters, right? Is somebody who cares about them.
Absolutely.
So, going back to the coach side, ultimately, like what I want most coaches to understand, people who are kind of starting off and like trying to decide if they want to do this. And what happens a lot, I think, in MadLab is the owner understands because they've been living this. And a lot of times they've been secretly trying to keep things going without letting their staff know how hard it is. And then they find this solution and it makes sense. So then they bring it to their staff, and then the staff is like, no, I'm not interested. And it's like, you don't understand. Like, that's a lot of times it's not, I wouldn't say it's the owner's fault, but that's what happens when you haven't been honest with them about what's going on from a financial standpoint and from an industry standpoint. Is that if your coaches think, they started at 15 an hour and then they went to 20 an hour, then they came on full time, they're working $25 an hour, and you're barely paying them, but they feel like they've been getting raises, so why wouldn't that continue? They think, oh, it's great. Like, I have this pretty cool schedule. I get to work out all the time. I love people, but they don't understand that when a new coach comes on, they're going to take some of those hours away, right? There's not enough hours in the day or in the week to really support people like that. And then you start talking about raising rates, and then you want them to help support you and talk to the members about raising prices, and then they don't want to do anything to do with it because they don't want to be the bearer of bad news. Yeah. And then everything's been fine for a few years, but they don't have medical with you, and they want to go on every time they want to go on vacation, they get unpaid, and then they start getting frustrated. And so ultimately it's because this is my theory, is that most gym owners started their gyms so they could help people, including their coaches. So they've been protecting and kind of nurturing their coaches for so long that what happens is then when they try to, like, okay, we're going to do this MATLAB thing, but it's going to be hard work, the coaches are like, whoa. No, I just want to coach classes. I'm good. I don't need to do all that extra stuff. Yeah. And so as an owner, it's let us show them the real deal. Let us be, we're showing them the red pill or the blue pill or whatever. Is it green or red in Matrix? I don't remember.
Red and blue. Yeah.
Red and blue.
I don't know which one is good or not, but which one shows you the real.
Yeah, we've
ever down the rabbit hole, so to speak. Yeah, right.
The vast majority of coaches and a lot of owners have been living in the Matrix, and they don't understand that this isn't the way things work, And if a lot of gym owners don't understand too. I come from the martial arts world where, and I was taught from somebody who was one of the first for-pay martial arts schools in the United States, starting in the 50s and 60s. And they've seen every fad and phase come and go. And one of the things that is Tracy's Karate Studios, which originally come under Ed Parker, for those of you who know what I'm talking about. But they actually were there, like, they've been around long enough to see, like, these different phases and things. And what they talk about is the churn of the other studios. And what'll happen is somebody they're passionate about their martial art, and they're a full-time whatever. So then they open a part-time studio. very low barrier to entry, right? All you need is some square footage and some mats and some pads, and you're good to go. So then it starts going. And they fuel that thing on pure energy and dedication and passion for about a year or 2 or 3. And then the bills start adding up, and they've been charging too little and nothing's making money, and they may have some guys helping them out. Maybe their top guy leaves and moves literally 4 doors down and opens his own studio. Happens all the time in martial arts. CrossFitters freak out about it. I'm like, this has been going on in martial arts for 40 years. And then eventually one of them just finally throws in the towel. But guess what? The new guy is there. And for every guy that leaves, somebody else will step up.
You'll never get to the bottom of it.
Yeah.
No, you never outlast new people coming into the market.
And so they talk about cream rising to the top. The problem is that there's always going to be somebody else who's fed up with their job and is willing to just sacrifice because and they think if they sacrifice and they work hard and they care, then it'll all work out. But they don't understand that the business model's broken. So then they'll be in it 2, 3, 4 years. And then somebody like literally, I've seen it literally happen where in one location, a martial arts person set it up with mats. They finally closed down. Somebody moved in and somebody else moved in and somebody else moved in. There've been 4 different martial arts people in the same exact square footage. That landlord is lucky as hell, right? Because there's always somebody willing to step in. And so us as gym owners and even as coaches, the problem is that people, they think like, oh, as long as I keep my quality and I'm doing my thing, but they don't understand that there will always be competition because there will always be somebody who doesn't know any better. I wouldn't say an idiot, but just somebody who doesn't know any better, coming in, charging too little, offering too much. And this goes back to branding, right? If they're saying you're doing the exact same thing to the casual customer looking in the window, that class looks almost identical, or that YouTube channel looks almost identical to this YouTube channel, they're going to go to the one that's cheaper.
And that is the point that I've been trying to make to our clients over the last few weeks is that the cream can rise to the top, but if the consumer can't recognize the difference, then it doesn't matter, right? And so, I use this in other relationship-based industries. I mean, there's a reason that this is a relationship, that we're in the business of relationships. If I tell you, how can you tell if your accountant is good or not? How can you tell ahead of time? If you've never used an accountant, how do you choose a good accountant? And people are like, referral? It's like, okay, sure. Well, guess what? That's a relationship. But how does the person making the referral have any idea? It's like, I don't know. I got a refund. I guess it's good. We really have no idea. I mean, it's very difficult for someone who's not in the industry to be able to tell the difference between a good and a bad accountant, a good and a bad financial advisor, a good and a bad attorney, right? These are very intangible service-based industries that take a high degree of knowledge and specialization. And so when you're in the market for these services, there's no way to tell. And here we go. The attorney's $700 an hour. I guess. I mean, I can't afford to lose. I guess I get her, take out a second mortgage. Let's do this thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it really does. It really does go back to the referrals and relationships and all that. 100%.
Yeah.
I always said the phrase when someone says the cream will rise to the top, and I say always, but one rotten curd will ruin the whole batch.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what we don't have. We don't have quality control in these coaches. We don't have quality control in these gyms. And if it's all in one, according to the consumers, we're all in one big vat, and they see another post about somebody else with shredded hands or somebody else going to the hospital, it's like it ruins it for everybody.
And that's why, I stick my foot in the marketing scheme every now and then, because once our people have got the business model right, it's staff development and leadership and marketing. And I just say, you have got, with everything that you do from a marketing perspective, it can only be on 2 things. One is relationships, meaning you're doing the Greg Mack thing and you're going and talking to people and one-to-one, right? That's great. It's very effective. You should do that. The second thing is with the social media that we work so hard on with our internal marketing groups is you must have a perceived service differentiation. If your stuff looks like in kind the same as your competitors, the consumer will not be able to differentiate between quality and say, well, they've got people doing squats and we've got people doing squats in our Instagram pictures, right? We've got a voodoo band thing and they've got a mobility thing. Like, that just, you really have to look hard at the social media content that you're putting out. And I think people should be focusing on two things. One is they need to be making their frontline staff, whoever is doing the coaching, be it the owner and some coaches, just the owner or just the coaches, they must be the stars of the show, which is what you just said a few minutes ago about the hub of everything. So we have to recognize that and make them the stars of the show, just like headquarters did with the original crew in Santa Cruz 10, 11, 12 years ago, right? Nicole, Greg, Annie, and we didn't even really hear them as much, but we saw a lot of them, right?
Oh yeah.
And so you need to have people have a sense of deja vu when they come in. There can be no surprises because from their perspective, this thing is a black box. They don't know what happens inside of your box. And so we want to make the invisible visible and say, hey, here's a tour of my place. Here's exactly everything that we've got. You're going to walk in. You're going to come right here. Here is where somebody's going to be, or we're probably coaching, or you've made an appointment. That's how you got here. And so we'll be waiting for you. Here's what's going to happen during that appointment. You walk them through that. And then you have the informational, education-based content where you're teaching people, why you do what you do. And I think people should start with the MadLab system, not to promote MadLab, but because that's your service differentiator. Everybody else does Group X on-ramps. We do personal training one-on-one. Here's why this is important, who it's for, and who it's not for, right? If you were a Division I athlete 3 years ago, you may not need, again, the level of service of which we provide. But for moms, grandparents, busy professionals, stressful entrepreneurs, this is the value proposition of private training. And then we go, now, should you choose to join into our group classes, everybody continues personal training. We call that hybrid. And here's all the advantages of this and why this is. And so when you're explaining and taking people through your perceived service differentiation, when it resonates with your ideal client, then there's nowhere else they can go. They cannot shop you against Group X because they've already determined in their mind that that's craziness because you explained to them the drawbacks, who that's for, and that's great, but that's not who we work with, right? And what we do and who we work with and who this is a really great fit for. And if this is a good fit for you, we'd love the opportunity to meet with you and find out if you want to take the next step. And you have to do that through Coach for Life. What is it? What are the advantages? What does it mean to have a Coach for Life? They don't know, right? Yeah, and so it's our responsibility to educate the market, which can be exhausting and frustrating. But if we haven't done it, then we can't be upset when they come in and go, hey, how much are you? Because I'm just dialing for dollars. What's the price? What's the price? What's the price? And so we have to put that information out.
How much is the oil change?
That's right. But the fortunate thing is that when you build the foundation of this content and videos and it lives on your YouTube channel and you cycle it through Instagram and you start to do some of the actions that draws people into your drip email campaigns that utilizes information, so you're showing people what it is. It's a lot of upfront work, but then the hamster wheel is going, and then once you've got those basic foundational pieces, then you can do drive-by videos that are just showing your personality. And I think that Chandler's Gym, Stone Age Fuel, does a great job of this, obviously. I think MadLab School of Fitness, even when you go to the online school, you see like Day in the Life of T-Bear, and you say, well, what is going on here? And just watching it, you get the sense that it's busy, it's a lot of fun, there's a lot of laughter, it's high energy. It's a unique culture. And if what you're showing in your marketing is not unique, then it's a waste of time. It needs to be unique to you and your staff, because that's the unique thing that we're selling.
And power cleans, right? Like every gym's doing that.
Yeah.
What would you say? Yeah. Quick question. What would you say to when gyms, when your competitors, your most closest competitors, are basically just like trying to mimic what you're doing, and they're not doing it. They're just saying it. Oh, we do personal training. We start everybody else on one-on-one. And that's something that I know in my gym that I still own. Like we're crushing it, and then there's two gyms in our little town that are MadLab, and there's one that's not, and they're offering a fundamentals program. By the way, they've been using hashtag School of Fitness now for a long time.
Sure.
And they do personal training one-on-ones, and it's like $90 for their fundamentals program for multiple personal training sessions.
Yeah. So I would say, well, how much personal training do you need? What does the process look like? Now, my guess is that they have X number that they sell, and everybody goes through X number, right?
Yeah, or they call it personal training, but it's really small group or whatever.
Yeah. So I would continue to talk about the fundamentals into the coach for life, right? That these are inseparable elements of the coach for life and the coach client relationship that is different than you get somewhere else. Now, let's say they're doing it all. Then I would say, first off, most people, because we know that newbies in our program make this mistake, right? Is they say, oh, okay, 10, we sell 10. That's how many we do.
Mm-hmm.
And they box themselves in. And so I simply ask, well, what happens if you don't need 10? What happens if you need more than 10? What are the chances that you need the exact number that they're selling?
Yeah, that's not how it works.
Just what are the chances? I mean, if it's just a bell curve normal distribution, right? You tell me, is it 5% chance that that's exactly, you were in that 5% that it was perfectly designed for?
And then you can tell in 1 or 2 sessions.
Right. Yeah. And so I say, so if you're either going to be wasting your money because you're stuck in 10 and you didn't need 10, or you got rushed into something, no matter how many it was, you got graduated early out. And if they do, let's say you're surrounded in every gym within 20 miles is MadLab. They're all first seal and they're doing, the format is exactly the same. Then it goes back to what you're buying is a professional relationship with a fitness professional, and they don't have your coaches. And so if you have made your coaches, web celebrities and have content showcasing their personality, the culture of your business, and their credibility and expertise, then it gets to the point where they don't want to go somewhere else. I've never lived in San Francisco, but I know a lot of gyms at San Francisco CrossFit because they have made stars out of their gymnastics coach, their Olympic lifting coach, right? You go down the line and say, oh, okay, that's the place to be. Well, why? Because they put videos on the internet.
Yeah, no, that's if we're selling relationships, that's who we should be showcasing on.
That's the
social media. Right?
Yeah, that's the unique selling proposition.
Yeah,
exactly.
But it's interesting though. Like I said, it doesn't worry me that much. I mean, I'm hoping I can get this last gym into the group just because it's so much easier when I know people are focusing on quality and retention. A lot of people will say things in the resistance we get in the MadLab group from potential gyms is like, oh, my market's really small. There's not a lot of people in this area. I can't charge that much. And it's like, the smaller your market, the more important retention is. Yeah. You can't be burning through people. We were talking about this earlier, is that bacteria have a curve. It's an S curve. There's an incubation phase and then a logarithmic growth, right? So I saw a video recently that said that E. coli replicate every 20 minutes. They double. If they could replicate uninterrupted within, I think it was 36 hours, they would cover the entire Earth. And within
people have said that about my family.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. Maybe a slightly longer duration time. And in 48 hours, they would be the mass of something like 30 Earths of E. coli.
Wow.
So that's the logarithmic growth. And this is something we saw in the gym business, right? There's a lot of gyms that were dividing and coaches going and opening new gyms, and there's new gyms popping up and everything. And then then there's a plateau phase, and then eventually the cell death phase where we see a retraction, and then usually a steady state after that. And it has to do with why that we start to see the attrition is the byproducts of reproduction. The metabolic byproducts start to affect. Obviously, there's also the amount of fuel to create that also starts to run out. And so we saw this in our industry, and we're on the downward right now, maybe even leveling off. But the byproducts are people that got burned, people that went to a gym, did a free class, had a bad experience, trained for a few months, had a bad experience, determined it wasn't for them, and now they'll never step foot in one of these types of gyms ever again. And so, going back to this concept of retention, like you can't expect to again, retain 10 or 20% of the people who come and have a business, because in the smaller your market, like those other 4 or 5 people that are leaving you are you're going to end up starving, because you're going to end up with 80 people and thousands of people in your town will never come talk to you ever again.
Yeah.
And so I'm really hoping that more gyms get involved in this whole idea of retention, because really realistically the golden the golden goose that we're looking for is to have a gym of 150 to 200 people that never leave. That there's a waiting list, because the only time a spot opens up is when somebody has to move or dies, right?
Yeah, and it goes back to, again, the Greg Mack. He talks about this in his course about the number of people you need and building the world you want to have, and that works on two levels, right? It's coaches working with the clients that they love to work with. And there's not that many that you actually need. We live with this perspective of scarcity, like there's no clients, there's no clients. And obviously, our culture is sick, right? We're too rich. I mean, we're sit down and eat all the sugar, and it's just trouble. So there's plenty of clients. We just have to be able to show them the value proposition and talk with them about what's going on. But it works on the other side, on the higher level as well, with owners of their staff, right? Because a lot of owners are working really hard on developing their staff, hiring staff, maintaining their staff. And that, the number one thing is really got to be that you enjoy spending time with your staff. Because if you're going to mentor, if you're going to have an apprentice, this is one-to-one, right? Just like we're coaching clients one-to-one, we're developing staff one-to-one in an apprentice relationship. It's a lot of time. You got to really have it be someone that you want to spend that time with. And I think that was kind of something that doesn't get talked about enough. But when you go and do an autopsy on MadLab School of Fitness, not that they're dead, that came up, a biopsy perhaps, what you find out is, Patterson talks about his coaches is my best friend. My best friend works for me, and he spent thousands and thousands of hours one-on-one helping them develop their business at his gym. And so if you don't really enjoy spending time with your staff, you're not going to put in the work, and it's a dead man walking, right? You might as well just let them go and go find somebody else that you really want to hang out with, because they're not going to make it, because they need so much mentorship to get through the program.
It takes so much more out of you working with somebody you don't like, you don't get along with, and it's a long process. And if you're not compatible personality wise, eventually these people are going to be taking over a lot of parts of the business and the community, and there could be friction if they're not somewhat compatible. 100%. And it goes back to, again, the theme the last couple of weeks has been creating a sellable asset, and not that we're trying to make it a negative thing, but ultimately, like I said, that if you're not doing things with the end in mind, you're doing your clients a disservice. I know there was a gym that closed near me recently, not a like a group class gym, but just sort of a gym that shut down without telling anybody. And the owners had owned it for 25, 30 years, and they were just like, yeah, we're done. We're retiring. It's been a good run. And the clients all literally showing up, knocking on the doors, and the doors are locked. Employees basically just getting their last 2 weeks pay, but having to go find a new job, no warning. And that's what ends up happening in a lot of these gyms, because they haven't been thinking about that. Creating a sellable. You're not doing. It's not selfish to think about creating a sellable asset. And the best thing you can do is the people who have a plan for these people who are investing their lives in your community, in your gym, the coaches, and create a path for them so that they could eventually buy 5%, 10%, who knows, 50%, and eventually buy you out. Then you're rewarding them for all their hard work. But it has to be people that you are compatible with personality wise, and that you want to hang out with, that are your friends for sure.
Yeah. I wonder, as you are developing the coaches development division, what is the biggest challenge that the coaches are finding in making the leap over? Is there one particular area that they stumble on the most?
I think the vast majority of coaches struggle with the sales aspect. It ends up being kind of the communication of talking to humans, and whether they came through the website or they walked into the gym, or people out on the street, and being comfortable in having a system or a process to be able to interview that person to see if they're a good fit. And there is just so many hangups about that. And there's about, like, and I think there's a fear of rejection. There's a there's this association of the sleaziness of being a salesman or whatever. And this is stuff, like I said, I did the Greg Mack course a number of years ago, and I've been on countless of the monthly Mac webinars. And I unbeknownst to me, I had actually had sales training. I didn't know it. When I was working as a martial arts instructor, they had actually learned it from the Arthur Murray Dance Studios, and I think it was a modified Sandler thing. And I had no idea, but we were like, "This is how you talk to people. Here's the phone script." We practiced it all the time. We did role playing and freestyle stuff, and we were not allowed to talk to new clients until we had achieved a certain level of proficiency in that. And so when I started the gym, it was so easy. It was like, this is what I do. It was really, and I also had a certain confidence in my ability to teach the movements, and the confidence in the system of fitness itself. So it made it really easy for me. I really was passionate. I wanted to tell everybody. But a lot of coaches now, I think, struggle with that. And that's ultimately, I'm not trying to say this in a bad way, but you could be a terrible person and a terrible coach. But if you understand how to communicate with people, and you have the personality, and you understand what to find out what they need, and you're able to provide it, or at least they think you're providing it, you will never have a problem as a professional coach. Now, we don't want that. That's the last thing we want. That's one of the reasons why we have these checks and balances. We're very conscientious of the fact that what we're teaching is powerful, and we do not want to just let everybody learn our communication systems and make a bunch of money and hurt people or give them bad service and rip them off. So that's why we have the junior oral certification, the senior oral certification, and the associate coach certification, because it's not just about being able to sell memberships. It's about being able to provide a quality service. But I'd say that's the number one thing, is most people are nervous about money, talking about money. That's it.
It made me think of people asking their coaches if they wanted to do this MadLab system. This is something that's kind of happened, and they're taking part-timers and telling them about full-timers. And a lot of times the way that owners make the pitch is, hey, you're going to make $100,000 a year. We're going to pay $5, $6, $7, $8 a month. And people are like, oh, okay, that's great. But I think that in our culture broadly, a lot of people have lost the ability to think forward in time, right? And to make plans for tomorrow. And, like you say, you're sitting here, if you're got a couple of coaches and they're all 24 years old and they're like, oh yeah, I don't want to do that. This is great. If you're as an owner and you're 35 or 45 or 55 and you go, you know what? I know you're not going to think that the current state of this is great in 5 years, where you want to get married or you want to buy a house or you're just tired of living at your mom's basement. You need to make some more money. At some point, ownership has to be able to have enough vision and leadership to say what we need as a business. And in fact, what's best for you or the role that you currently fill is for me to create a sustainable job and career for someone to be able to stay in it for 20 years and build a career there and live in the community that they're in. And that's what we offer. And it's amazing to me the number of people who have started to either tell me or just come back and say, I talked to my coaches. I'm like, what are you talking about? And they took a poll of their coaches to see if they wanted to do this. And said, oh, my owner came here, said they talked to MadLab. That didn't sound like something was good. So I nipped in the bud, so they're not doing it. And it's like, if you're running your gym, and it's taking a straw poll from your part-time 22-year-old employees to decide what you should do, we got big problems.
Well, and they may not even understand. The owner may not understand the right things to convey. And
yeah, I mean, we're in a game of telephone.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we're working on as a group, is we're putting out all this content and building a reputation so that coaches can come find us and what we're talking about today and begin to understand, so that you guys as owners don't have to do it. And you guys as coaches, if you're at a gym who's not doing MadLab, like, you need to talk to your owner about this, because ultimately our goal is to make your job a long-term profession where you're making 6 figures, you have paid vacations, you have medical, you're not working crazy hours, and you can do this as a career. I guarantee that the place you're working at now does not have a plan that's going to be successful. We have not seen it. I've been running gyms since 2005. I've been in the industry for 20, 25 years, and it doesn't work. Like there's no other way that works without some of the stuff that we're talking about. And so I'm not just talking to owners here. I am talking to you guys as coaches. So you guys need to be thinking about this stuff. What is the long-term plan? But you're absolutely right. I think a lot of owners get really excited and they forget that they've been protecting and nurturing their people. And so then when they come and tell them, we've got a lot of hard work to do, it's going to be tons of hours, you're going to be way outside of your comfort zone. Are you in? And the coaches are like, I don't mind making $27,000 and working 20 hours a week. It lets me train for regionals. That's what they're thinking. You're like, you that won't work when you're 37. That doesn't. You can't keep doing that, and I can't keep giving you raises. Most coaches don't understand. You might make the 20, the 25, the $30 an hour, but then that business owner has to make a decision. Am I going to pay this person $30 an hour, who's a great coach? Or am I going to pay this other person $15 an hour who's a good coach? And
in the Group X environment, it's very difficult to tell the difference or get the value out of that great coach.
Exactly. So, and a lot of times the $30 an hour person who's been coaching 3, 4, 5 years is starting to get burned out. And so they may not even be delivering the best content. And so then they have another enthusiastic person coming in. They're leading a great class. They're entertaining. They're turning the music up and they're doing their thing. And again, 2 for 1, really? You're going to cut your payroll in half when that person's you're going to start cutting hours of the established person, and you're going to start paying. So as a coach, you need to understand that there's always going to be a young guy or young girl coming up willing to take less money for doing the same amount of work. And that hourly model doesn't work. But when you're in your 20s, right, and you're single and you got a roommate and you love the sport and you're trying to make regionals or the games again, and you think it's fine to make $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a year, but that's not a sustainable career, especially when you've got to work mornings, evenings, and all the other stuff.
And you get a lot of alpha dog status by being the guy in charge, and you look good. You're surrounded by beautiful, good-looking people who are also fit.
Giving you props all the time, right? They're giving you, so there's all
the strokes.
The four major serotonin, or the 4 major neurotransmitters, right? You get serotonin is status, right? So you get a lot of serotonin hits when you're in charge and people are giving you strokes. The dopamine is when you get things done. The oxytocin is the community, and then the endorphins are when you're actually working out and doing things and enduring. And they talk about that in the Leaders Eat Last, right? Simon Sinek has his book and his videos on that. And I think that's a chemical cocktail that a lot of coaches get addicted to when you're doing the class stuff. But ultimately, the hourly model. And then and I know you guys, some of you business owners are thinking, well, I pay my guy salary with bonuses and salaries. I'll tell you what, it's unfortunate, but humans don't work like that. If you start paying them salary, they will start to cut back their involvement, right? To a certain level. Unfortunately, if you give them a flat salary, very few people work great in that environment, and they'll end up dialing themselves back. And you'll feel as an owner frustrated, like you're paying them too much, and they'll feel frustrated because they're not getting paid enough because of all the peaks and valleys each month. So that's why we've got a different solution.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're good here. I think we can call it. It's late for you, isn't it? What time is it there?
It's 10:37.
Dedication. Tell you guys what, we are not paying Kevin a salary. That's not
no performance pay, baby.
Yeah, that's why he's here at 10:30 at night. It's only 7:30 here at night, so
that's right.
It's not bad.
When you're excellent, you never want to be on a salary.
That absolutely to be. I have not been on a real salary since I worked as an engineer and 10 plus years ago, and I've had some situations where I was getting paid a flat rate, and I was just like, man, like I'm either feeling guilty for collecting this because I haven't been working as much as I think I should, or I'm frustrated that I'm not getting paid enough for all the work I have. And it's never perfect. It's always one or the other.
Right.
So that's why performance-based pay is so important. So we can reward people for working hard. And you guys, when you want to take a break and cut your hours back a little bit, you don't feel guilty because you're going to get paid a little bit less. But instead, the business is okay with that. It's designed for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know how to shut this thing down.
Well, that's Chan's job.
Yeah, I'll shut it down, you guys. You ready?
Oh, you're here. Okay, cool.
I was just waiting for this moment to be able to speak with no face.
You're the moose. You're the moose.
Yeah, a moose on the wall.
A moose on the wall.
All right, you guys. Good work tonight. It's been exciting. It's been fun. I had JJ on the live speaker on my whole gym when we first started this, so that was exciting.
That's awesome.
I will shut the broadcast down. Thanks for being on, guys. Thanks everybody who's watching. We had a blast.
See you in Vegas. See you in Vegas.
See you all in Vegas.
Boo.